Hello, and welcome to my first video. This is the first in a series of videos to introduce you to colored pencils. Colored pencils, in my mind, are a fabulous medium. They're very clean, they're non-toxic, they're readily accessible. One of the things I like best about colored pencils is that there's no setup and there's no cleanup involved. You can get up from working on your drawing and you can walk away for 2 minutes or 2 weeks. It makes little difference. When you come back, nothing has dried out. You don't have to worry about mixing the same colors on a palette because you will mix them in layers on the paper. I first started working with colored pencil when my first child was an infant. I was spending a lot of time looking after her, and when she'd go down for a nap, I could go work on a drawing. And when she woke up, I could leave it, and it didn't matter whether I came back to her the same day, within an hour, not for another week. There are no brushes to wash before they hardened. There's no cleanup. I didn't have to worry about toxic fumes. I didn't have to worry about dust. I've taught drawing and colored pencil painting for more than 20 years now. I've also had many solo and group exhibits, and my work is in collections in many countries around the world. As well, I've organized many exhibits on a local and a national level. The exercise in this video is one that I use in my colored pencil courses. It teaches students some of the basic color theory, and it gives them some familiarity with applying colored pencil in layers. One of the initial challenges with colored pencil is that because it's a pencil, people automatically think they know how to use it, and they do for writing, maybe for a little sketching, but they don't know how to use it to produce art. And it's not quite the same as the layering techniques that you'll use with colored pencil. You may have noticed that I've referred to colored pencil works as paintings. The reason I do this is because they are paintings. They are produced with the same pigments as oils or acrylics or watercolors. They're applied in layers in a very similar way, and they produce a similar result. Most of the colored pencil artists do not draw with their pencils. They paint. They apply colored pencil in tonal areas just the same as if they were working with paints. There are colored pencil drawings out there, but most works are paintings, and that's the term I'll most often use. This exercise uses 3 colors to build a complete color wheel. What are the primary colors? Most of us are taught that they are red, green, and blue. That's true if you're talking about light, but we're talking about paint and pigments. The primaries here are yellow, cyan, which is a light blue, and magenta, which is a pinky purple color. With these 3 colors, you can make any color you want, including red, green, and blue. So let's begin. Okay, so step 1 in this layering technique, or layering process, layering exercise, is we're going to make a circle of circles. So I'm tracing a quarter. Anything else is fine. A little pill bottle, you can use a compass, whatever you like. And basically we're going to make a clock face. Now, to save a little time, I've pre-done this. So I have that here. Once you have that, as you can see, I've got a basic clock. At the 12 o'clock position, you're going to put a Y for yellow. At the 4 o'clock position, you're going to put a C for cyan. And at the 8 o'clock position, you're going to put an M for magenta. The next step will be to color evenly and fully each of those 3 circles with the indicated color. So now you have your paper prepared, you've got your circles drawn, you've got them labeled yellow, cyan, magenta. So the next step is to start coloring those. So I'm going to use a yellow. This is a Faber-Castell Chrome Yellow. It's number 106. I'm going to use a Derwent Light Blue, number 33. That color is not actually blue, it's cyan. And I'm going to use number 22 on the Derwent Studio again, number 22 Magenta. Okay, so we're going to start at the top and we're going to apply a nice even layer of yellow. The important thing here is that you fill in the circle evenly. You don't want it dark here and barely visible here. It's got to be the same density and the whole square needs to be filled in the same, or the whole circle rather. Okay, so then at the 4 o'clock you're going to do the same with the cyan. Again, make sure that it's even. You don't want it streaky. You don't want parts of it darker than others. I'm actually getting a bit of texture showing through from this top of the drawing board, so I'm just going to turn it over, get rid of that. That's much better. Okay, so you get that good and even. And the magenta at the 8 o'clock position. And once you've got these 3 done, we're going to go back and label some others so that we don't get confused as we move on from here. So what you're going to do at the 1 o'clock position is you're going to do a layer of yellow, and at the 11 o'clock position you're going to do a layer of yellow. And at the 3 o'clock you're going to do a cyan, and at the 5 o'clock you're going to do a cyan. At the 7 o'clock you're going to do a magenta. At the 9 o'clock you're going to do a magenta. And then what you're going to do is you're going to do at the yellow, at the 1 o'clock position, you're going to do a yellow, cyan, yellow. At the 3 o'clock position, you're going to do a cyan, yellow, cyan. In the middle, you're going to have a yellow, cyan, yellow, cyan. And then at the 5 o'clock position, you're going to have a yellow, a cyan, a magenta, cyan. In the middle 6 o'clock position, you're going to have a cyan, magenta, cyan, magenta. At the 7 o'clock position, you're going to have magenta, cyan, magenta. At the 9 o'clock position, you're going to have magenta, yellow, magenta. And then at the 10 o'clock position, you're going to have a yellow, magenta, yellow, magenta. And at the 11 o'clock position, you're going to have yellow, magenta, yellow. So you can go ahead, I'm going to go ahead and fill that in and we'll come back. Okay, so now I've filled in all the first layers of yellow, the first layers of cyan everywhere, and the magentas. And what we have now is we're starting to do the second layer. So here we have the magenta, yellow, magenta. So I've got this second layer on, the yellow over the magenta. And now I'm going to put the third layer, which is the magenta. You'll notice I'm angling things here. I'm moving so that I make sure I get my coverage as good as I can. Okay, you may have to use a little bit of pressure. I'm not using the best paper here, I'm just using a piece of Bond. Okay, so then on this square we have yellow as our first layer, magenta is our second. Okay, again, you want to be as even and consistent in the amount of pigment that you're putting down. Okay, and then we're going to cover that with another yellow layer. And then I'm going to put another layer of magenta on top. Okay, then the next yellow up here at the 11 o'clock position, first layer is yellow, second layer is magenta. And then I'm going to put another layer of yellow on top of that. Okay, on the other side, going to the 1 o'clock position, I've got my first layer of yellow down, so now I'm going to put my layer of cyan on top of that. You can see I'm not quite as even in my yellow first layer. And then the third top layer is the yellow again. So I'm getting a little sort of a lime green. Now this 2 o'clock position, I'm going to put my layer of cyan. And then a yellow layer. So now we're basically the same as the square beside it, or the circle rather. Keep calling them squares. And now we're going to put the cyan on top. Okay, so then we have, at the 3 o'clock position, you've got cyan down, so we're going to put yellow on top. I'm applying a fair amount of pressure, partly because of the paper and partly because I want it nice and even. Okay, and then we're going to put the cyan on top of that. Then we have our cyan layer, and we want magenta. Now we're down at the 5 o'clock position, so we've got our cyan down. Now we're going to put magenta on top of that. Don't worry too much about going. If you go outside the lines, not a big deal. We're not doing artwork here. And then on top of that, I'm going to put a layer of cyan. At the 6 o'clock position, we have cyan down, putting magenta on top. Put another layer of cyan. And then we're going to put another layer of magenta. On the next layer, at 7 o'clock, we have some magenta down. We're putting cyan on top. So what you'll begin to notice in terms of the colored pencil is that the order in which you put the layers down does have an effect. So you want to bear that in mind for future work. And then we're going to cover that with another layer of magenta. And we're done. You have a color wheel. What you'll notice is that you have all your basic colors. There's the cyan we started with. This is a blue. Then you have a blue violet here, or a violet and a blue violet. Yeah, this would be violet, and this would be blue violet. You've got magenta. You've got red, which is the complement of the green. You've got orange in different degrees, which is the complement of the blue. Oops, sorry, right here. And you have the yellow being the complement of the violet. If you mix all three of these together, I'm going to get a magenta, put a yellow on top of it, put your cyan on top of it, you're going to get a muddy mess that has almost the appearance of a dark brown or a black. If the pigments were pure, you would actually end up with a black. But you can see that reads as a black. And I'll cover this in a future video, but it's by mixing complements that I generate blacks in all of my artwork. I use black very, very rarely. So this is an exercise that you can try. It will give you some practice learning to use the pencils, learning to layer. I would use a piece of good quality drawing paper, not high quality, but a good quality sketch pad rather than the Bond that I've used. Do the circles, color them in this order, and you'll find that you have reproduced all of the colors. One of the things that's interesting to do is to use different yellows, a different magenta, maybe use a red or a Glycerin crimson or something along that line, and a different blue, use ultramarine or use a phthalo blue, and do the same exercise. And do that with as many yellows, cyans, and magenta combinations as you can come up with, and you'll find that you get all the different shades, tones that you're looking for. It's an interesting exercise. I'll show you an example that I have done with several of those. Here are 6 examples of other color combinations that I've done, and you can see there's quite a dramatic range that you can create. I encourage you to try this on your own, and I'd love to see what kind of results you get. You can email me at coloredpencilmagic@gmail.com, and remember, that's colored with a U. I hope you found the information in this video helpful. In our next video, we'll be looking at practical applications of using the color wheel and some of the theory we learned in this first video. We'll learn how to make shadows that sing with color, and we'll make more interesting blacks than just using a black pencil. If you found this video helpful and enjoyed it, I hope you'll like and subscribe. It would be much appreciated. Look forward to seeing you soon.